Good morning, everyone. How are you? Apologies that we weren't able to be with you live yesterday. It's just been pulled in all directions the last couple of days. I know it sounds like a record, doesn't it? Anyways, today's learning we are dedicating in memory of Rachel Bas Yaakov Holder, Alice Phillips, Sarah Bas Gedalia Alexander, Anna Bas Yitzchak Azulai, From Bas Gedalia Dimson, Noam Bas Moshe Lewis, Norm Bas Yehuda Leib Mandel, and Phyllis Mansky. Wish all their respective families long life and only simchas. Good morning, in no particular order, and welcome back to Carol, Caroline, Mervyn, Peter, Woodside Park, and Rachel. Lovely to have you all here. So, how was last night? Bit of a roller coaster, wasn't it? Had your hopes up and then dashed in one moment. It's a discussion for another time, okay? If you'd been in Shul on Shabbos, you would have heard what is the true It's Coming Home all about. That was the theme on Shabbat morning. It's coming home. If I get the opportunity, I'll write it up or I'll record it for you guys. In the meantime, good morning, Richard. And let's share a brief thought on Parshas Devarim. Shabbos Devarim is always rather emotional. Shabbat Chazon, it's the Shabbat before Tisha B'Av. It's quite heavy as we approach Tisha B'Av. This year, more than any year, I really need the external reminders that this year is a Tisha B'Av. It's so much to mourn for, the loss of so many things, and I think Caroline, despite the fact that it would have been different had England won, yes and it wouldn't. I'll share with you a brief thought, which I wasn't thinking of saying, but Caroline's just reminded me about last night. And, at the end of the day, when you wrap up your flags and your banners and put them away for another year or two or three or four, take your shirts and put them away and your face paint and all the other things, you take down the decorations. At the end of the day, it was only a game. It was only a game, a wonderful distraction, right, that took us and lifted us and took us to a completely different world and different space. But we came crashing down with a bang. But the bottom line is, even if we'd won, that moment of excitement, even inspiration, elation, jubilation would have come, and 2 seconds later it would have gone, because it is in a way a figment of our imagination. It's a game. It wasn't reality. Rabbi Tatz has a wonderful idea, a truism, an observation about life and the world, and he says as follows: that everything in this world is a metaphor for true life. So in regards to dreams, he says, when you're in the midst of a dream, it seems palpable, it feels tangible, it feels so real. I don't know if you've had this recently, Rachel. You had any dreams, Richard? So you have a dream, and all of a sudden you wake up in a cold sweat, and and then you go, oh, that was a dream. It wasn't real. And then you can go back to sleep, hopefully. Or you spend the rest of the night tossing and turning. But the reality, you wake up and you realize it's only a dream. Why did God create this whole thing of dreams? Good morning, Alan. The idea is that dreams are a metaphor to teach us about life. That so much of what we think is real is really not real. And what is real, sometimes we see as a dream. So it's really to see the wood from the trees. That's the idea of dreams. We think that these things are so important in our lives, so meaningful, so significant. But if we take a step back, so often what we pin our hopes and our dreams on, it's not real. It's only a game. It's only a competition. It's only a job. It's only, whatever. And true things that matter in life, right? They are things that endure forever, beyond our lives, right? Beyond our lives. And I think that's a very important lesson from last night and from the morning after. I think it lifted our spirits. And there's, as I said, I gave a sermon all about it on Shabbat, so I don't want to repeat myself. But let's learn something different. But I think there is a lesson, like Rabbi Tat said, about dreams, something that feels palpable and so real. And then, you wake up and you realize that it was a fleeting moment. It was a figment of your imagination. So it's an important lesson for us. What is real in life and what is not real? And I'll leave that question with you. Let's go on. This week's parasha says, Hashem Elohecha imach lo chasarta davar. In other words, that for God, your God was with you. You did not lack anything. And King Solomon said that a lover of money will never be satisfied with money. And the multi-billionaire Paul Getty was asked, how much money is enough? How much money is enough? And do you know what his response is? His response of John Paul Getty was just a bit more. And when you have that little bit more of money, what do you say? How much money is enough? Just a bit more. And the Talmud tells us that this is the way, this is the way of Torah, of Yiddishkeit. You should eat bread, with salt. In other words, a very basic diet. Drink water in small measure and sleep on the ground. That's what it says in Ethics of the Fathers. Is that really the aesthetic abstinence of this world? We're meant to live like monks. Is that really the existence and the way we are meant to go about life? Doesn't seem to be reflected in the lives that we have, or even of many great people. And the answer is, it's not that we have to live that way, but that is the approach to our lives and to things that we have. In other words, the importance, the significance that we attach to tangible things should be insignificant. It's not that important, right? So, I played a little trick on somebody yesterday. I really shouldn't be telling you the story, but please don't tell anyone else. It will just stay between us. So I was visiting someone, and someone had a Ferrari, okay? And it was I could see it was a brand new one, or it looked new, and a red Ferrari. And when I went into them, I said, oh my goodness, I don't believe what I've just done. A massive scratch just caught the corner of that red car outside. Anybody have a red car parked outside? And of course, the color in this guy's face drained for a second when he realized that I was suggesting that I had smashed up his Ferrari. Now, of course, afterwards, after I tortured him, I said to him, no, it's only a joke. But how much importance do we attach to things? So the point is that for what's really important for life, what's really important in our lives, then we should be able to go without. Histapek b'muat, we should be satisfied with a bit. Doesn't mean you have to have a bit, but we only need that bit. We don't need a lot. I think it was, what was his name? Adam, and he wrote about the infinite wants of mankind, an economic theory, one of the basic economics theory. And that's the idea. There is no end to the wants we have. There is an emotional and an intellectual side to every person, right? And we have to serve God with both. The question is, which is the most powerful? Which one is going to be driving and which one's going to be in the passenger seat in our Uber of life with our mind and our hearts? If we allow the seat of our passions and our emotions to rule over us, what's going to happen? I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. What's going to happen is we're going to have an absolute disaster. We're going to have an absolute disaster in that what we are going to see is running everywhere, having to buy, and having unsatiated wants, feeling a sense of displeasure, discomfort. We're never going to feel a sense of fulfillment. But if it is, and that's the animalistic side to us, and we need that side, don't get me wrong, Because if you don't have passion, if you don't have any feelings, right, then you'll never do anything with any emotion. It will be devoid of any meaning. But on the other hand, the direction, the driver in the seat of life in which we are journeying must be our intellect. So therefore we are able to keep into perspective what life is really about. I heard last night, actually some Hasmo boys, it would be of course Hasmo boys, and one of them bought tickets, I think for the final for like, I think it was like £1,000 or £750, and then he sold them for like £4,000, so the markup was huge, and people, were willing to spend thousands of pounds for a 120-minute game, as it turned out, and penalties, right? And that's why were they willing to do that? Because everyone is craving to fill themselves up with something of inspiration and meaning and fulfillment, and they can't do it, because if you try to do it in physical terms, then it's unsatiable. It's impossible, as we said, the economist Adam says. So the only way that we can feel a sense of fulfillment and meaning in life, where we feel good, a lasting goodness inside us, is if we are able to listen not to the dictates of our heart, but to our mind and to the Torah, and listen to what really, the way the Almighty, our Creator, has told us, that's the way you should live your life. And if you go along this path, then you are going to live a life of fulfillment and meaning. It's fascinating. At the time, I could choose any of the great sages, but I'll take you back to, I don't know if we've mentioned it, Herbert Samuel. Everyone remember Herbert? So Herbert Samuel, before the Second World War, long before the Second World War, at the time of the First World War, I think he was the commissioner, wasn't he? The High Commissioner in Palestine. And he went to see the greatest sage of the time, which was Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. Okay, you'll remember the name. Cut long story short, he visited him in his home, and he was the chief rabbi of Jerusalem. And he was living in abject poverty. There was a hole in the wall. There was no furniture. It was nothing, right? And yet he was beaming from ear to ear with a smile, and life in the Holy Land in Palestine back then was exceptionally difficult. There was malaria, there were people dying, there were attacks from the Arabs. It was terrible, a terrible life we can't even imagine. And Herbert Samuel said, I don't understand something. You are the greatest sage. You are the chief rabbi. Everyone comes to seek your wisdom and counsel. Why are you living in such abject poverty? Why is it you don't have a beautiful home? And then he moved, the rabbi, Rav Sonnenfeld, moved the curtain aside, and his home overlooked the Kotel, the Western Wall, the place of the temple. And he said, when his temple is rebuilt, then I will rebuild my home. But I don't need it, he said. To live a godly life, you don't need to have a beautiful home. And therefore, I think it's very much the message, the motif of the day, of the week, as we have the lead up to Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is all about one thing, friends. Think about what life is all about, and how perhaps we can enrich our lives by thinking about others, by being more considerate, and being even more givers. And I know that we all do it, and I know that we have very special people on this group, but nonetheless, there is always that little bit more that we can do. Let's hope us pray that we can do so, and in that way, we, please God, will see the ultimate redemption. Okay, bear with me 1 second. Here's the sheet. Memorial prayer. Adon Olamim Zacho Es Nishmos Lebat Moshe Rich, Erika Bas Avram, Racha Bas Yaakov, Holder, Alice Phillips, Sarah Bas Gedalia, Alexander, Alo Bas Yitzchak Azulai, Fluma Bas Gedalia Dimson, Navi Bas Moshe Lewis, Noama Bas Yehuda Lev Mandel, Phyllis Mansky, Shalchu Leolamam, Bakan Eden Temenu Chasam, Lachim Barachamim, Tasrim Besaykana Pavliolamim, Vishos Chasam Shamadna, Nachlasam, Yanuchu Bishomash Kavam, Venamar, Amen. Lastly, before Shlema prayer. So many people, but in this country, but in South Africa and around the world, seriously ill, and in Israel once again, and therefore our thoughts and prayers are with them, as well as those in our own community that have, it may not be COVID, but have other serious illnesses. A number of people prominent members, and we wish them all well. Mi Shabar Rabsein Robinson Yakum Moshe and Damajish Lamoy Rabes Achailim, Babush and Mispalim Babu Rabes, Sakatakosh Baruch Yimali Rachmalahim, Laknofos, Amishlakim Fushim and Shmam Lakolvim Basosh Yisrael, Rafus Hanefesh, Rafus Agov, Hashavas Makariv and Amaramen. Keep safe, keep well, have a lovely day. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.